Let's have one more and last example on piecewise functions. Again, we have to sketch the graph of this function and then identify its domain and range. As you can see, the function is defined by three expressions. One is x squared, so f of x is equal to x squared if x is less than 1 but greater than or equal to negative 2. I'll call this function a, and it's equal to a constant 2 if x is exactly 1. I'll call this function b, and then it's equal to x plus 1 if x is greater than 1. I'll call this function c. Alright, let's sketch the three graphs separately. We'll start with function a. As you may be well aware by now, function a will give us a parabola, just a portion of the parabola opening upward with vertex at the origin. Okay, so knowing that, it will be easier for us to graph the function. So let's take the value of the function when x is equal to, let's just take the endpoints of the interval. When x is equal to negative 2, what is the value of the function a? So that's negative 2 squared. Just substitute negative 2 for x in the function, 4. So from there we get the point negative 2, 4. Remember that negative 2 is included in the first interval in the function a, so therefore this point with the coordinates negative 2, 4 is a shaded circle in the graph. Okay, now when x is equal to the other endpoint is 1, what's the value of the function? F of 1 is 1 squared, which is 1. So we have the point 1, 1 in the graph. But then, in that interval, in function a, 1 is not included. So therefore, the point with coordinates 1, 1 must be an empty circle. Let's sketch the graph or plot the points. Negative 2, 4 is included, but 1, 1 is not included in the graph. Okay? We need to have, or we need to show the vertex of the parabola, which happens at the origin. So when x is equal to 0, I can take x equals 0 because that is in this interval in the function a. Okay, the value of the function is 0 squared, which is 0. So there we have the point 0, 0, which is actually included in the graph. Okay, and actually the vertex of the parabola. Knowing the form of the parabola, so opening upward, and it stops there. Okay, just a portion of the parabola. Okay, now pertaining to b. b is a constant function. Constant function. Okay, now we only have that constant function. Look at this. The condition if x is exactly 1. Therefore, we are just pertaining to a point, not actually a horizontal line, but a point. Because the value of the function is 2 whenever x is 1, is exactly 1. So whenever x is 1, the value of the function is 2. We are actually pertaining to this point. Okay, just a point. Whenever x is 1, the value of the function is 2. A point. There, you have it on the graph. A shaded circle. Now, for c, if you may notice, c is a linear function. And we consider that linear function if x is greater than 1. Okay, since we know it's a linear function, therefore it will give us a line when we sketch its graph. So, to draw the line, again, we'll just be needing 2 points on the line. Okay, so when x is 1, I'll take this number, okay, 1 endpoint of the interval. The value of the function is 1 plus 1. Again, we substitute 1 for x equals 2. Now, I can take any number greater than 1 because of the interval x greater than 1. So, if I take x equals 2, then I can get the value of the function at that number. F of 2 is 2 plus 1, substituting 2 for x, 3. So therefore, we have two numbers, or 2 points actually. 2 points with the coordinates 1, 2, and 2, 3. These are the 2 points on the line. Okay, 1 is definitely not included in the interval in the third function because of the strictly less than sign. Okay? So therefore, 1, 2, this point is not included in the graph. But that point is the same as this, which is actually shaded. So this empty circle will be shaded because of that point defined by the second function. So this is the point on the graph, now shaded. Right, now shaded. And then another point with coordinates 2, 3, which is included in the graph just because 2 is in the interval x greater than 1. 2, 3 is here. Okay, now look at the interval. The interval is x greater than 1. That means for all numbers greater than 1 on the x-axis, we have this function. Alright? So the line doesn't just stop at one point that we have plotted, but it goes all the way upward. Like that. Okay. Let me use a darker color. There. Shade. Empty. But this one is shaded by the yellow dot. Alright. That's the graph of the function. Now we're done with the graph. We have to identify its domain and the range. For the domain, we look at how far it goes with respect to the x-axis. This line goes all the way to the right, but this parabola stops at -2 on the x-axis. Okay, so the leftmost point on the graph is this, which happens at -2 on the x-axis. And this point over here is actually shaded, so -2 is included on the x-axis. Okay, the leftmost point happens at -2, which is included. And the rightmost point we don't know because of this arrowhead. It goes all the way to the right. Okay, so we don't know up to positive infinity. And in between these numbers, -2 and positive infinity, look at the graph. In between those numbers, okay, there are points on the graph. Okay, there are points on the graph. Alright, so it means to say that all the numbers in between -2 and positive infinity are included in the domain. If it happens that there are spaces in between the numbers -2 and positive infinity in the graph of the function, then we don't include those numbers in the domain. As you can see, this is an empty circle which does not include 1 on the x-axis. Okay, but then we have this point which is shaded that includes 1 in the domain, okay, of the function. Now going to the range, how far does the function go with respect to the y-axis? Let's look at the lowest and the highest point of the graph. The lowest point is at the origin. That's the lowest point on the graph. Okay, and the origin has y coordinate equal to 0, so the lowest point happens at y equals 0. And that point is included in the graph because the circle is shaded, so 0 is included. Now, as we can see, there is a portion in the graph wherein we have a space, Okay, so it looks like in that space, the numbers are in between 1 and 2. Okay, in between 1 and 2 on the y-axis. On the y-axis, in between 1 and 2. But then, if these numbers are not included on the right side of the graph, okay, these numbers were covered by this portion of the graph on the other side. Okay, so still, the numbers from 1 up to 2 on the y-axis are covered by the graph and are included in the range of the function. Alright, so what's the highest point on the graph? Where is the highest point on the graph? We don't know that because this line goes all the way, this line goes all the way up, and we do not know the highest point of the graph. So we might as well use positive infinity here to denote the highest point on the graph, or the highest number that the graph covers with respect to the y-axis. Okay, so that's it. Alright, now, but take note that if we are to erase this portion of the graph, this portion, look at the graph, if we are to erase, okay, for example, we just have that graph, and here, and then here, then this part will not be included in the range. Okay, this part will not be included in the range. So we have to change this range to another set of numbers. Alright? So there you have the graph of the function and its domain and range. Thank you. But wait, if I have to change the interval in the first function, say this, I change to -1. So I'll be using another color. I change to -1. The only thing that will change in our function would be the graph of the portion of the parabola. The graph of the portion of the parabola, this is still less. This is still okay. The graph, going back, the only thing that I'll be changing is the graph of the portion of the parabola. Now, instead of extending up to -2, we'll just stop here. Here. Okay, so this will be the portion of the parabola. This is still the vertex at the origin. -1 included, but positive. So we have here shaded circle, and then we have here empty circle. Just because +1 is not included in the interval of the first function. Alright? So that will be the graph of the new function, and of course, since the graph changed, the domain and range would change as well. Well, the domain, let's look at the leftmost point and the rightmost point of the graph of the function. The leftmost point happens at x equals -1 here, and that point at x equals -1 is definitely included in the domain, right? Because we have a shaded circle, so the leftmost point happens at x equals -1. So to indicate that -1 is included in the domain, we use bracket. The rightmost point, well, we don't know where that happens because of this arrowhead. Okay, so we don't know where that happens, so up to positive infinity, just because the line goes all the way to the left and we don't know where it stops. Alright, now for the range, we have to look at the lowest and the highest points in the graph of the function. Again, the lowest point happens there at the origin, and at the origin the value of y is equal to 0. Alright, so the lowest point point happens at y equals 0. So 0 is included just because that point is shaded. We don't know where the highest point is. So it goes all the way up. This goes all the way up. So we don't know where the highest point is. But then if you try to look at the graph closely, you have here a space, which is not included in the graph of the function. Therefore, all the numbers in that space, okay, we're talking about the y-axis here, are not included in the range of the function. Alright? All the numbers in that particular space are not included in the range because there is no graph on that portion of the Cartesian plane. Therefore, these numbers on the y-axis are not covered by the graph. Okay? The last number covered on the y-axis here, over here, by the portion of the parabola is 1. And then, the first number covered by the blue line is 2. All the numbers in between 1 and 2 are not covered. So how do you write that in interval notation? So we start from 0 over here, and then we end at 1. 1 included because of that point. Alright? All the numbers in between 1 and 2 are not included in the range, but 2 is included, and so are all the numbers greater than 2 with respect to the y-axis. So union from 2 to positive infinity. Just to say that all the numbers in between 1 and 2 are not included in the range. So that's how you write the range if there is space in the graph. Alright? Now, please try to answer these exercises for your practice. Thank you for listening.